I have a feeling my predictions for the World Cup this year are definitely going to cause some sort of stir. Ah well. How's it going everyone, Centrebrak here and welcome to the channel, and today it is time to do our World Cup predictions. Now I actually think this year is probably going to be one of the most unpredictable ones we've had in a while. I don't think there's any standout team per se. There has been some years where I think that one particular team will storm it. I don't necessarily think this is the case this year. I think there's going to be a lot of close games. There's also a lot more qualified. The tournament actually now has 48 teams compared to, was it 32 in the previous one? I know a lot of people haven't actually been excited for this one this year. Currently, the biggest discord is to discuss the stadiums compared to the English ones, which I find to be completely irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference to me as long as the football's good. I know some of the games are at like 4 a.m. for us in the UK, but at the same time, this part of the fun, really, isn't it? To be able to watch like a random game like Tunisia versus Sweden just at some random point. So now FIFA does actually have its own breakdown on there that you can do, which makes things a little bit easier. So that's what we're going to be using today. I haven't thought this through yet, so I'm going to click on it and see where we go. I feel that's a terrible idea, but we shall see. So we think that we've actually got 48 teams now. The way that it actually works is obviously the top 2 always qualify, but now 8 of the 12 teams that are actually third also qualify, which I think is pretty similar to the Euros. So it means that there's going to be a lot of teams here who look like they might not actually get through, but they just sneak through. Okay, so the first group is Group A, and something that I think is worth noting is that Mexico will play all of their group games at home, well, in the home country, so therefore they're going to have the advantage of the Mexican crowds being really on their side, which I think is going to play a big part in this, and I think Mexico are going to top their group because of that. When you look at the rest of the group, I think Korea are going to do really well. They've managed to get through in the previous one. They beat Portugal in 2018. They're the ones that knocked out Germany and stopped them from getting through. They seem to have some sort of tie to Mexico because they have in previous tournaments. I think they will finish second. I think the Czechia are going to finish third, and I think South Africa, unfortunately, will finish fourth. I do think Czechia will be one of those teams that qualify, though, based on third place positioning. I think the way it's going to work, I think if you get 4 points, you're probably going to get through in third place. So I think Czechia will be fine, but it's neither here or there. Group B, I think Switzerland are going to get through. They're a good side. I think Bosnia and Herzegovina are going to finish second. I think Canada will finish third. Again, they're going to be playing a lot of games in Canada itself. And then I think Qatar, unfortunately, will finish fourth. Trying to fly through these very quickly. Brazil, I think, are going to win that group. They're a fantastic team. They've now got new signing Ederson for Man United, who's been called up due to an injury. I actually think, which is going to be a little bit controversial for some people, I actually think Scotland are going to finish second. I think also they've started off their preparations pretty well. They've looked pretty good so far, and I think they're actually a good side. I know that probably means controversially we're going to put Morocco at third, but the semi-final that they had 4 years ago isn't now. It's a completely different tournament. I think they're a good side. You know, Hakimi especially coming off winning the Champions League again. But I don't think they're going to hit the heights they did previously. Now, it's got a bit of controversy for Group D, which is the home nation USA. I actually don't think USA are going to win that group. I think Turkey will. I then think USA will finish second. I think Paraguay finished third, and I think Australia unfortunately finished fourth. Paraguay are actually a little bit of a dark horse in my opinion of maybe doing even better. Again, I think Group D is going to be one of those groups where you're going to see a lot of split points. There's not going to be one that finishes on 9, winning 3 out of 3. I think there's going to be a few 4-pointers there, which will probably mean that everyone in this group will qualify. Group E, I think Germany will get through. I also think Ecuador will finish second, and then I think Cote d'Ivoire will then finish third, with Curacao finishing fourth. It is their debut in the tournament. I think for them it's going to be a pretty good experience to play some of these really big teams. I think Germany will get through. They've got a really good manager. I don't think they're going to go ridiculously far in this competition. However, I think they're a really good start, and I think they'll do quite well just to get through the group stage, no problem. Group F, I'm going to say something a bit different here. You would think maybe Netherlands, but I actually think Japan are a very underrated team in these tournaments. If you look at how they did when they faced, was it Spain and Germany in their group? They were fantastic. I think they're a good side. I do think Netherlands will get through. I think they'll finish second, and then I think that Sweden will finish third, with Tunisia finishing fourth. I think Japan are just ultimately an interesting side to watch. I think 2018 they got really unfortunate with the last minute goal. I think they looked quite well. Sorry, in 2022, and I think as a nation they're getting better and better at football as it is. So I think they're going to finish top, and I think Netherlands are going to finish just second. Now, Belgium are going to win the group, in my opinion, in Group G. However, I think the chance of that golden era has now gone. They probably should have won a tournament a few years ago. When you think of how old people like De Bruyne are now, Hazard's retired, their opportunity to actually qualify and win these tournaments, I think, has shrunk significantly. They're not at the level they were. I think they'll still get out of the group comfortably, but I don't think they're going to hit the heights that they previously potentially could have. I think Egypt will go through. I think, obviously, Mo Salah is potentially going to be his last full tournament, or he might get another World Cup maybe, but especially considering he's seen to show some sort of decline in the last year or so at Liverpool, I think it might be his final one. And then I think that New Zealand will finish third, and I think Iran will finish fourth. Moving on to Group H, Spain are going to win it. Let's be honest, they're a fantastic side. I know they've got some injuries, which has kind of affected their ability in the odds, and some people don't think they're going to be as far as they potentially were. But I still think they'll comfortably win their group. Uruguay will finish second, and then I actually think that Saudi Arabia will finish third, with Cape Verde finishing fourth. Moving on to Group I, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that I think France are going to win their group. What tends to happen in these tournaments is you think that a particular one's going to win the group, and it doesn't happen. I still think, just based on statistical probability, when you're doing a prediction, you will instantaneously think, do you know what, it must be the main group winner. It must be. There's no other one it could be. But ultimately, when you're going through these, I just don't think doing a prediction, unless you're trying to be a little bit rogue, you would think that any other the big nations wouldn't finish first. Unless they're all in the group together. But because of how many are actually in the tournament this year, a lot of them have avoided being in the same group as another big nation. And in the past, you might have ended up getting 2 or 3 really good teams. Like, for example, when England got knocked out in 2014, they had Italy and Uruguay in their group. It's not the same anymore, because ultimately there's a lot more competition, and therefore they're spread out a little bit more, and they'll end up facing each other in the knockout rounds instead. But at the end of the day, I think France will win their group. I think Norway will finish second. Haaland, first chance at a World Cup. I think he'll definitely score quite a few goals. I think Senegal will finish third, and then I think Iraq will finish fourth. Moving to Group J, I think Argentina will obviously win that group. It's most likely Messi's last hurrah as well. The thing about this tournament for Messi is it's not as important. He's won the World Cup now. He won it being the best player 4 years ago. So there's not that pressure that maybe Cristiano Ronaldo actually has. I don't think he can relax during the tournament, but he can kind of play a bit more freedom, knowing that he doesn't have to try and hit that height, because he's already got it. No matter what, you can't take that away from him. I think Austria finished second, and then I think Algeria finished third, with Jordan finishing fourth. Group K, I think Portugal will win the group. Again, it's all going to be down to Cristiano Ronaldo. It's going to be down to the fact that he is in his final tournament. He's 41 years of age. He's not going to get an opportunity to win this again. I think he's got a very good team around him, especially when you look at players like Vitinha and João Neves. He's actually got a strong team that can help him. I know some think that he might be a potential hindrance, but I think they're going to get a chance during this World Cup where they're going to need a goal, and he's going to be the one to pull it out. End of the day, it's his last hurrah. He's going to be playing. He's going to be going for it. I think they'll get through their group comfortably. I think Colombia are a very underrated side. They're always doing quite well in tournaments. They will finish second. And then it's a bit, I think it will just be DR Congo, with Uzbekistan finishing fourth. But I think this particular group is going to be mostly about Cristiano Ronaldo's final time in this tournament, final time in the group stage. I think they'll get through comfortably, Colombia finishing second. Finally, on to Group L. As an English person, I feel like I am jinxing saying anything about England. I think that's a bit of a risky business. However, I am going to predict that England win their group. I think some of the reaction to especially their opening game in terms of the preparation, and also some of the players being missed out, has been a little bit over dramatic. At the end of the day, when it comes to tournaments like this, it's just who turns up on the day. It's whether or not you can put up a good run to get through. We've got lucky where we've done that in the last few tournaments. We've done really well. We potentially could have won 2 Euros. we got to a semi-final and a quarter-final, which is a lot better than where we were with our golden generation. I think ultimately when it comes to England, the press kind of puts a lot of pressure on the players. They really, really hone down on it, and I don't think it's really fair. No matter what they do, they will have a lot of pressure, and it'll be, oh, it's not going right here. Jude Bellingham was like, oh, is he going to start? And of course, someone started doing some drilling as I'm doing a recording. I can still hear it. Oh, anyways, I think the press ultimately kind of put too much pressure on England. You've got this situation now, like with Bellingham, for example, where they're putting so much pressure saying, is he going to start? Obviously, he's going to start. He plays for Real Madrid every week. He's not going to sit on the bench, is he? I know Rodgers has played quite well at Villa, but you can't take a player like that out. And that's ultimately why England never really get as far in tournaments as they probably should. There's always an instant negativity towards them. There's always a ready position to overreact. At the end of the day, some of the teams that have been in the practice sort of game friendlies before the World Cup haven't looked too strong either. So I don't think it's just an England thing. I think it's just a general sort of situation that everyone's going through because they're just experimenting and trying to get a bit of fitness in there. Bear in mind, this is a long, grueling season and now they're going into a month tournament, so it is quite a lot. I think in England's group as well, what's important is they do have Croatia, who I think will finish second. You know, when you look at what they've done in previous tournaments, they've managed to get to a final where they got beat by a good France team. They got to the semi-final. They finished third or fourth. Can't remember if it was third or fourth in the last one. They're a good side. Naturally, they are aging a little bit. So when you look at someone like Modric, for example, he's 40 years of age. It's probably going to be his last tournament. I think that even though they're an Asian side, they're a good competition for England to have early on. And that's not trying to underestimate them. I think it would probably end up being either a 1-0 or a 0-0 game. But I think it's important for England, if they're going to go far in this tournament, to play a decent side like that, because then they're going to be prepared for facing a better side later on in the tournament. Again, I think Croatia are a good side. I think they'll give England particularly a good game. And I think they've been such a credit to themselves over the last multiple tournaments that we've had. But I think that obviously their main core is now much older. It's going to be kind of petering out a little bit in the last few games of this tournament. I think Ghana are going to finish third. Again, I think Ghana are a good side. I think they'll give England a really, really good game. And I think that Panama will finish fourth. So because of that, we're going to have 8 third-place teams that are going to go through in this tournament. It's not like previous World Cups. So if you think of the fact that if you finish third place, you've got a good opportunity to get through. I think 4 points does it. If you finish on 4 points, you will get through in third place. Obviously, if a big team ends up going third, it's going to really kind of screw up the positioning of where every team's going to be. Now, I think Morocco will get through. I think Senegal will get through. I think Algeria will get through. I think Cote d'Ivoire will get through. I think Sweden will get through. I think Paraguay will get through. I think Czechia will get through. And then the final one, I think, will be Ghana as well. I don't think Canada are going to get through, even though they're a host team, unfortunately. So I think all of them will go through no problem. I think it'll then do some sort of like working out to see who goes through based on the positioning. And go through to our knockouts. First game that it predicts for us to do in the round of 32 is Germany and Paraguay. I think Germany would get through in that. It would then be France versus Sweden. I think France would get through. Korea versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think Korea would get through in that one. Japan versus Scotland, I think would be a very good game, but I think Japan would get through. Please don't come for me. I have praised Scotland in this video. I then think it'll be Colombia that would beat Croatia. I think Spain would beat Austria. I then think Turkey. I think Cote d'Ivoire would get through, actually. Cote d'Ivoire are a decent side. Again, when it comes to national tournaments, because you don't watch them every week, you kind of think, right, well, who's going to be a surprise package? There's always a surprise package if you think of Morocco in the previous World Cup where they got to the semi-final. There's always a team that you're not expecting will just kind of go a little bit further. I think Belgium would beat Czechia. I then think Brazil would beat Netherlands. I think Norway would beat Ecuador. I think Haaland would get them through there. I think Mexico would beat Morocco. I think England would beat Senegal. Argentina versus Uruguay, that's a really good game, that. Argentina, I think, would get through. I think USA would get through, especially because obviously they'd be at almost home because they play in Dallas. I then think Switzerland would beat Algeria. And then I think Portugal would beat Ghana. Reasonings, just my educated guess. Again, when it comes to national tournaments, it's so much more difficult to predict. And I could be easily wrong with some of them. I can't wait to do a look back on this to see how far away I am from my actual predictions. Okay, moving on to the round of 16, it's now put Germany versus France, and I think France would definitely go through with that. I think they're a fantastic side. I do quite like Germany's team. I like Nagelsmann in charge, but I think when you've got Mbappe, that's going to be the major difference point in some of these big games. Korea versus Japan. I think Japan would go through. I think it'd be a pretty good match, though, that for sure. Again, Japan, I think, are becoming a very good footballing side. If you look at their progress in the previous tournament, I know they beat England in a friendly a few months ago as well. They're definitely developing and they're definitely getting through there. Colombia versus Spain, I think Spain will get through. Spain are just a fantastic side, even with some of the injuries. I think Nico Williams is not going to be at the World Cup, so there is a few people missing, but ultimately I think Spain, especially when you got Lamine Yamal, is going to be the big difference maker. When you think of the fact that he was tearing up the Euros when he was 16 years of age. I mean, he's only 18 now. Or is he 17? He's only 17 or 18 now, isn't he? He's 18 years of age now? 2000? He's 18 turning 19 years of age. So he's going to be the major difference point for Spain. I don't think Belgium would beat Cote d'Ivoire. Again, I think Belgium are maybe past their big window of opportunity to win the World Cup. However, I think that they would definitely be able to get at least the quarterfinals. Brazil versus Norway, I think Brazil would get through. They're a fantastic side, they always are, they're fun to watch. Mexico versus England. Now, I do think England would go through. However, they'll be playing in Mexico City based on how I predicted it, and that would be almost like a home game for them. And I think that would be a big difference maker for Mexico. You could easily see England getting knocked out on penalties in that particular game, I think. Just from the way it kind of falls. I think England will go through. I think that would be a fantastic game. And I think, in particular, the crowd would be up for it. And I wouldn't actually be surprised to see Mexico knock us out on penalties if we got to that particular situation. Just because the crowd would be behind them. And, you know, it would just be completely up against the English side. We'd then move on to Argentina versus USA. I think Argentina would go through. Switzerland versus Portugal. Portugal would get through. We'd then have France versus Japan. I think France would go through. I think, for me, France are the favourites of the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something crazy happen. Bearing in mind, France did get knocked out of the Euros in 2020 by Switzerland, I think. Especially when they're coming off the back of being the World Cup winners and getting to the previous Euros. So something surprising could happen. But I think for Mbappe, it's going to be the most important tournament of his life. When you look at the situation at hand with Real Madrid, they've not won any trophies in 2 years. He left PSG after trying to get the Champions League multiple times, and as soon as he's left, they've won 2 in a row. He's definitely up against it compared to maybe anyone else in world football that's a superstar right now. Regardless of what people think, his legacy is already secured. What people don't realise sometimes about the World Cup is if you do well in the World Cup previously, it kind of negates everything else. If you look at Maradona, for example, you know, he won the World Cup in 1986. He won in 78 as well, I think. He definitely, well, I mean, 86, he was the star man anyways. And because of that, no matter what he did at club level, it doesn't matter because of what he did at international level. And at international level, he was the best. Yeah, sure, he scored a goal with his hand, but he also scored arguably the greatest goal ever after that. And he was the main vocal point of that World Cup. So even though he played for Napoli, where yes, he did win 2 league titles, he won the UEFA Cup, he didn't hit the heights of winning multiple Champions Leagues like some of these other players. But everyone always says Maradona is one of the best. The same with Pele, by the way. Pele didn't play in Europe. I know he played in Brazil for all of his career and won multiple trophies there. But a lot of people don't necessarily look at the club level. They look at the World Cup. And because they've won it, it makes a massive difference. And that's why Mbappe's legacy, no matter what people think, is secure. He's won a World Cup where he scored in the final. He nearly single-handedly won a World Cup himself in 2022 when he scored a hat-trick. Bearing in mind, only one other person has scored a hat-trick in a World Cup final since his existence. So, no matter what people think, Mbappe's legacy is secure. However, he is under pressure in terms of today's world currently. Yes, the history is going to look back well on him, but in the current predicament that he's under more pressure than anybody simply because of the situation with PSG and Real Madrid. But I do think that France would get through. Spain versus Belgium. Again, Spain are a fantastic footballing nation. I think Spain would go through. I don't think that'd be much of a debate. They're a great side. Lamine Yamal would definitely be a major driving point of that team. England versus Brazil. Now, I actually think, this is just a personal opinion, I think in terms of the team setup, I actually think Mexico would cause more of a problem for England than Brazil would, because it would be like a home game for Mexico. Brazil are a good side. I don't think they've hit the heights that maybe they should have done in the last 20 years. Bearing in mind they've won it 5 times. It's most likely going to be Neymar's last tournament. So there's definitely going to be a driving point of that. But look, I think England are a good side regardless of the criticism. And it's not home bias. I actually just think they are an alright side. So I think England would go through to the semi-final. Argentina versus Portugal. I think it is perfectly set up for Cristiano Ronaldo to get himself through. And if there was going to be a game where Ronaldo would score the winner, it would definitely be this one. And I think that Portugal would go through. For Argentina, obviously, they always want to win the World Cup. But for someone like Messi, the pressure isn't what it used to be when he was younger. He's got a World Cup now. He was the main driving point of them winning it. So he's not got that pressure Ronaldo has. And I said before that I think Ronaldo would pop up and score a really important goal. Looking at this, if there's going to be any game for Ronaldo to score a goal that his team needed in a crucial moment, it would be a game against Argentina. Now, moving on to the semi-finals, it would be France versus Spain based on how I predicted it. I think France would win. Again, you look at how stacked that team is, and Spain's stacked as well, don't get me wrong, but when you look at some of the key players that are in that team, Ousmane Dembele is the current reigning Ballon d'Or winner. I've not even mentioned that yet, because you talk about Mbappe, then you look at all the midfielders, you look at the defenders. Ultimately, I think France, it's theirs to lose. I think they would be able to beat Spain and get themselves through in the semi-final. I think it'd be a close game, but I think France would get through. England versus Portugal. Unfortunately, this is where I'm predicting that England fall. I don't think they're going to win it in the current predicament. I think they'll get far, and I think there's a lot of unfair criticism, but I think this is the finer margin situation. If England were to get through, it would solely be based on, I think, Harry Kane scoring an important goal. But I think it would be set up perfectly for Ronaldo to get himself through to the final in his final World Cup. He's not been there yet. When he got to the final Euros, he went off injured and they won. It would be perfect for Cristiano Ronaldo to get through and get to the final in his final potential World Cup game. And unfortunately, I think he would lose. I think that France will win this World Cup. No matter how it kind of felt, I don't think there's any team that looks like they're going to potentially be able to stop them. I think the scriptwriters would definitely have Cristiano Ronaldo score in the World Cup final to win it for Portugal, but I think that the France team, in particular Mbappe and then Dembele, I think they have enough difference makers to try and get it through there. The Portugal side is fantastic when you look at Bruno, Vitinha, João Neves, Ronaldo's final World Cup, Rafael Leao. They've got a great side, but I think it is France's to lose. So, that's my prediction, everybody. I think that France will win the World Cup. Now, my question is, what do you think is going to happen this World Cup? Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to be top scorer? Who's going to be a surprise? And who's going to be your biggest disappointment? Make sure to comment that down below. Make sure to like and subscribe as it really helps out my channel. And make sure to check out any of my future videos. Now, we'll definitely go back to this video when we look at how badly we predicted this tournament. But make sure to enjoy the World Cup, guys. And I'll see you next time.